All right, vlog day again. I think last week I said some things which may have confused a lot of people. The basic premise was that I said there is one creation, and every being, everything, not just being, but rocks, trees, everything that exists and seen and unseen is part of that creation, and everything is part of that all and no thing, that omnil. So everything is what we may call God or the architect or the all mind or whatever term we want to give it. That all encompassing power, that force, which is, and exists in everything. So everything is part of creation, but there is only one existence, one creation. That's very brief. But specifically, Infinite Dragon God was asking about different mythologies and asking me, so therefore I'm saying that all mythologies are the same. Um, where things get a bit tricky, but I thought it would be worth a bit more exploration, and we'll carry on exploring this if we need to, because I think it's an important topic, it's an interesting topic. So the example I gave was if you consider an accident happens, there are 5 witnesses to this accident, and all 5 people give a different report. But there was only one accident. There weren't 5 different accidents, there was only one accident that was created, that existed, but there were 5 different interpretations. So it's very similar. I mean, we get multiple different worldviews. And all of those different worldviews are based on personal experience and personal interpretation, which then extend over thousands of years, millions of people, you know, believing in this particular worldview, or lots more people experience the same thing, and therefore it becomes a fixed worldview. Um, but if we go to the actual source, the accident in this situation, I mean, we can look at the different creation myths. Um, you know, in I think all of them, unless Aunt Mildred created a decided to just come up with a story about unicorns creating the cosmos. But I think in all of them, what we usually find is some kind of opposing force which comes together and creates an explosion or a shattering or something like that. And from that, everything develops. Um, but you know, you've got that one thing that happens which forms the whole creation, and then somebody came along, or 5 people came along and saw this and interpreted it in different ways. And this can create traditions and worldviews and all these types of things. We can look at the chakra system. If we look at the energies that flow in the body, you know, we can look at the Vedic system with the nadis, and we can look at the Chinese medicine system with the meridians, and put those 2 charts together. They look very different, but it's all still there. It's not that one person has a different energy system to another person. They're the same. And the chakras themselves, if we look at the chakras, we can start with the 3 points, the 3 cauldrons, which people now speak about, the 3 brains, the gut or the belly, the heart, and the head. We can then extend that into the 7 chakra system, or even the 5. We can go into the 5. We've got head, throat, heart, belly, and groin. And then we go into the 7, where we've got the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the head, and then it extends again into the crown. We can go into a 9 chakra system, an 11 chakra system. But I mean, the fact of the matter is we have thousands of chakras all over our body. We have palms, we have fingertips, we have soles of our feet, we have our shoulders. there are chakras, which are wheels or whirls all over the body, but we usually only focus on the seven, which is the most common, most spoken about. And so this becomes a system which people latch onto and continue with. Try and tell them there's more, and quite often you get told there isn't. But there are. It's just the way it is. That's our body. And we can relate our body, the microcosm, to the macrocosm. We can go further in, we can go into the atom, and the atom looks like a universe. It has particles that fly around a nucleus, and we have mercury, subatomic particles and quarks and etc., etc., etc. within this, but the main content of an atom is nothing. So we have in the atom the om-nil, the all and the nothing. So we've got all of these different systems, all of these different worldviews, but maybe it's just my belief. Maybe I'm just a complete loon and don't know what I'm talking about, and that's fine. Like I've said before, check, double check, and triple check everybody's information, including mine. Everybody, sit down, meditate about it, think about it. If it makes sense to you, cool. If it doesn't, that's fine. But the way I view it is there is one creation. Now, that creation can extend into not just multiple worldviews, but also multiple realities. Bad word to use. But what I was trying to actually say, and what I'm trying to put across, is that we see all these different things, all these different worldviews, all these different mythologies, all these different ways of interpreting and viewing and looking at these things, which are one thing. And we separate ourselves, we put ourselves into little categories, into little boxes, and some people do need that. I'm not saying it's wrong and something else is right. There is no right or wrong here. But some people do need to confine themselves into little categories and little boxes in order to create order, which they can then continue developing from. As long as they keep developing and keep expanding, that's the main thing. But we find ourselves separating ourselves from this group of people, or this tradition, or this thing, or that thing, because we're right and they're wrong, and that is very much a Christian worldview. So we kind of separate ourselves, put ourselves into this little box, and we stay there, and we confine ourselves, and we do not move beyond it. We do not explore, we do not expand, we do not grow. We just stay in this little box. For the person who asked me about whether, if I've got the question right, whether how the spirits of the Abrahamic faiths fit into demonology, they don't, unless we consider the spirits which are considered to be like the fallen angels and things like that. Lucifer, Azazel, etc. They do form part of the Abrahamic faiths, but as far as Yahweh and things like that go, they don't really form part of the demonology box. But it doesn't mean that the demonology cannot expand beyond that box, beyond those confines. You've got to keep growing, you've got to keep expanding. So with this expansion, what we find is that we find bridges and similarities between things. We don't have to agree with everybody's worldview, but we can find those bridges and those similarities, and we can start to understand those worldviews, that they came from a different perspective, from a different interpretation, and we can accept them. But as we keep expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding, we start to envelop everything, we start to see a big whole. And everything is one big ball of something, and something and anything, everything and nothing. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is don't confine yourself to these little compartments and these little boxes, because we need to grow, we need to expand, we need to become better than we were yesterday. Um, and we need to stop bloody fighting and arguing about all these damn things, because, you know, this person said X, Y, and Z, and therefore that person's wrong. They're not wrong. They're not, may not be right either. And this person who said X, Y, and Z is not wrong and probably not right either. It's just their perspective, their interpretation of something. Um, and again, coming back to the example of the accident, it's one accident with 5 different interpretations. Ask 10 witches what witchcraft is, and you'll get 11 different answers. So, yeah. Um, so as I said, I think we should keep exploring this, and keep trying to interpret it in different ways, so that, I've always found that if I'm trying to understand a particular thing, um, read 10 different people, talk to 10 different people, and get 10 different interpretations, and at some point someone will say something in a particular way which will make sense to you, and it will click, and it will create the understanding will then come. So if we keep talking about it and we keep trying to interpret it in different ways and trying to understand it in different ways, then we'll start understanding it. um, you know and again, I'm not saying that one person's worldview is wrong and another person's worldview is right. There are some which I would consider wrong because they are harmful. They are extremely harmful. They are detrimental to not just humans and the people that follow it, but everything around them and in the entire existence, really. But, that's just the way things are. And also coming back to this thing of separating and confining ourselves, when we going back to mythologies, so if we were to look at the Nordic tree, the Yggdrasil, and we find 9 worlds on it. If we go into Kabbalah, we have 10 Sephirah, and we have an 11th one if you include knowledge or Da'at. In a lot of shamanic traditions, and by shamanic I'm going broad, very, very broad. We usually find that there are 3 worlds, upper, middle, and lower, which come back into Yggdrasil. We can also talk about um, the different, I've forgotten the term, emanations on the Tree of Life, Asiya, Bria, etc. There's 4 of them, but the last one is just basically forms Malkut, that whole area. So there are 3. It's a bit of a stretch, but we can say there are three worlds within that. So we have the upper, middle, and lower. We find that on Yggdrasil, but then different traditions split those into different areas. So in one system, you might find there are 11 worlds, but X amount form part of the upper world, and then we have the middle world, and then X amount form part of the lower world. So we have these 3 realms, and all of these different systems talk about them. They just give them interpretations. They've explored it in different ways, and therefore they have found an area over here which is kind of nice, we'll name that. And there's an area over here, we'll name that one. And then somebody else came along and saw the 2 areas and thought they look quite nice together, so we'll just name the whole thing. It's different interpretations, the way systems and traditions developed over thousands and thousands of years. But it doesn't mean that the one's wrong and the one's right. It's just different perspectives, different worldviews. But at the same time, coming back to the whole separating ourselves and putting ourselves into little confined boxes, when we talk about this physical realm, this organic realm, and then we talk about the dream world, and then we talk about all the different possible realities, parallel realities we can have, the alternate, um, the alternate realities or worlds. We can look at those, the three realms, all of these different worlds. We separate ourselves from them. So it's like, getting up in the morning and deciding I'm going to take a trip to this other world, which is separate from me. It's not separate, they're all together. Um, One of the ways the Sephira on the Kabbalistic tree was actually explained to me, because we view it as this glyph which has, a Sephira, and then there's two, and then there's one, and then there's two. So they're all kind of separated. But the one way it was explained to me was that we had Keta, and then from that was an expansion into the next Sephira. And then there was an expansion into the next Sephira, an expansion into the next Sephira, an expansion. And it kept expanding out until we got to Malkut. So they're all kind of one big thing. The whole tree is just one big thing. It's not separate worlds. We can move from one world to the other, but in reality they're not separate. They're not as I say, we view them as worlds that are linked by paths, and we have to, in order to get to one, we have to take the path. But they're all within each other. And it's the same with the organic realm and the dream realm. They're the same thing. They're the same place. They're not separate from us. And this is what I'm trying to get at. We keep separating ourselves from things when we're just one whole with everything. And the separation is what causes the problem. It's about bringing unity, bringing or uniting separate things into one thing. They're already one thing. We just decide to separate ourselves from it. We try to push ourselves away from these things, but we can't. It kind of brings to mind two people trying to run away from each other with a sticky elastic band or something that's holding them together, and they keep trying to run away from each other, but they can't actually, because the elastic band holds them together. But they keep trying anyway, and they will keep trying to get away from each other. And it's the same thing. We keep separating ourselves from everything, from all of existence. And we can't. It's already there. It's like I said, divinity is in everything. It exists in everything. We are it. We cannot separate ourselves from it, no matter how hard we try. But we'll just keep running, trying to run through that door and get away from it. Why? I don't really understand it. So yeah, that's really what I'm trying to get at, is this whole separation thing. We keep separating ourselves from things, and if we continue to confine ourselves into these little compartments and categories and boxes, then we're going to remain separated, because we keep forcing ourselves to be separated. And this is, the separation is what causes all of the problems, all of the difficulties, all of the fights, all of the wars, everything. It creates big problems in the world, everywhere. Because through the separation, again, we come back to this, I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm right and you're wrong, and let's fight. So that separation causes disaster, absolute and utter disaster. So the solution is to stop running away. Oh, there was one example that I wanted to talk about, which I thought was pretty cool. If we were to imagine, now this is complete fiction, if we were to imagine there was some kind of cosmic event that happened in the sky. And through this event, there were various shapes and light patterns and things that appeared in the sky. And this lasted for, say, 48 hours. And then from this was created a new moon. Now, at the time of the event, as it happened, you had various people on one side of the planet who were viewing this, and they saw particular patterns and things in the sky, and they started creating stories about this. Maybe they saw a big turtle. The people on the other side of the planet, where it's nighttime, may have experienced it in a different fashion. It was dark, and then out of from the eastern horizon rose this big, let's call it a warrior, and this is how they experienced this event. And then over the next 2 days, the patterns change, the patterns shift. People from different parts of the world experience these shapes and light patterns in different ways, and more stories get created and developed, and groups of people start talking about it, and they start saying, yes, that's what I saw, couldn't quite make it out, but that actually makes sense. And then this moon is created, and a thousand years from now, all of these different stories have developed and grown, and they may not even be the same as what they were originally, but they've grown into all these different viewpoints, these different perspectives, these different interpretations of what happened on that day, and how this moon, this celestial body was created. And 1,000 years from now, you have all of these different people who are sitting there going, no, 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 it didn't, it was a turtle, no, it was a warrior that rose up out of the horizon. That's the same thing at the end of the day. So, just bear in mind that we all experience things differently, and we all have different personal interpretations. And those personal interpretations are not wrong, but it doesn't mean that somebody else is wrong either. So, it's how we view it, our perspectives. Anyway, okay, so now I'm going to stop. All right, so I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.